baby. And here's the really telling point. It's so funny. You follow social media, and you see people asking questions like, these people dropped their 6-month-old baby off at grandma's and then went on a shooting spree to kill a lot of people. Who would do something like that? How can we possibly understand anything like that? Because how could you plan an attack like this? How could you rope your wife into something like this? Right? How is any of this explicable? How is any of this inexplicable if you know two words, radical and Islam, and you put them in conjunction, and it turns out that that pretty much explains everything. Because as it just so happens, when it comes to radical Muslims the world over, they are perfectly willing to sacrifice children, and they are perfectly willing to use women, and they are perfectly willing to use mothers. Today, in Jerusalem, another attack by Palestinian Muslims against Jews, another knife attack. Every day, another knife attack. And many of the attackers are women. Many of the attackers are children. Many of the attackers are teenagers. Some of them are leaving kids behind. Okay, you have to be willfully ignorant not to look at the circumstances of this particular shooting and say to yourself, okay, what is more likely? That this is a guy who got ticked off at a Christmas party and went postal? Or that there was something that was organized and maybe they decided to use this as the trigger event because they had a bunch of people in the room, so they decided, okay, it's like Fort Hood. I have a captive audience. I have a bunch of people I already know. I'm a radical Muslim. I feel like shooting people. It may as well be people I don't like anyway. Now, that's a possibility. But the fact that for politically correct reasons, we are now going to shy away from all of this and we'll label it workplace violence as we did Fort Hood. Or we will pretend that this has nothing to do with radical Islam, which is absolutely untrue by every available metric at this point. It truly is amazing. Because here's what we know, and it's so illuminating. I mean, this case just explodes every leftist narrative there is. Every leftist narrative. President Obama 2 weeks ago was yelling at Republicans for saying that they feared widows, right? They feared refugee widows. Here was a woman who wasn't a widow. She was a young mother who went out on a shooting spree. A young mother who went out on a shooting spree. You know, the President Obama was saying, well, we can screen all these people. We're perfectly capable of screening all of these Syrian refugees coming into the country. We now know that this guy, Syed Farouk, traveled extensively throughout the Middle East and was just in Saudi Arabia for Hajj, and his wife was from Saudi Arabia in the first place. And the media, I have to say, the media is hysterical. They say the first thing that you saw in all the headlines was, Syed Farouk, American citizen, shoots up this regional center. American citizen, as though that's the telling point, right? Don't get it in your head that he might be an emissary of a problematic ideology. He's an American citizen. He's an American citizen. Well, as we continue, we'll take some of your calls here at 1-8-PRAGER-7.